welcome back to a brand new episode of Mando Chats with myself, Stefano, and Ben. Ben, how you doing?
I'm good, Stefano. How about yourself?
I'm great. I'm doing really well. This episode was definitely the one we were waiting for. It took a little while to get there, but we finally made it. What did you think?
Yeah, this is definitely, at least in my opinion, this is the strongest episode of the season. We're finally getting a good amount of plot development, of meat on the bones. It's a shame that there's only one left. But yeah, this is kind of what I've been holding out for this season, holding out hope for.
Yeah, it actually was the second longest episode of the season, which I was shocked and surprised that an episode with this many action beats and this many story plot beats was this long. So really happy that we got a 52-minute episode. Obviously minus the credits, probably like 48 or something like that, but just a lot more than we're used to with these 35, 32-minute episodes. So definitely the runtime was there, justified with the amount of stuff that happened was nuts. This episode felt like a culmination of many plot elements that have been introduced. So thankfully, they're starting to thread the needle a little bit across different plots, and it seemed like the major one is the development of the rise of the First Order, which we saw basically in this episode. What would you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting that they seem to be taking this show and really trying to form a connection to the sequel trilogy, which is, I mean, it's cool. It is nice, a lot of those, a lot of concerns and problems. I know there were a lot of problems that people had with that trilogy. So it is nice that they're filling in some of those gaps, making some things make a little bit more sense, adding a little bit more context to the First Order and their origins. And it's a nice surprise that we're getting that, because it was unexpected.
Yeah, I saw something. I saw a quick video, and it makes so much sense. It's been something that I've been thinking for a while too. But the video said the solution to Star Wars is more Star Wars, and it makes so much sense.
You're not wrong.
Because every time something happens that people don't necessarily either agree with, or it's like they just need time to build up to it, and with time comes more of that particular thing. So for example, this threading the needle between the story arcs, if we get a little bit more context in between, you may end up having a situation like the prequels where now everyone loves them.
Yep. Yeah. All it takes, I mean, I know a lot of it is not planned. A lot of it is, genuine problems or plot holes, but it is nice that, as a whole, they're addressing these concerns. They're hearing the fans' voices, and they're going back and saying, well, obviously, we can't fix the movies and the content that's already been put out. What can we do to make it seem a little bit more natural, to fit within this world a little bit better, to add more context to it? So it's like retrospectively making that content better.
Yeah. Since Star Wars has moved to television and longer format productions, I personally have liked this format better for the context of what we're getting. The universe is so large that I don't think it can fit within a 2 hour to 2.5 hour story anymore. And I think that's been Star Wars' problem this whole time, because they introduce characters, they throw characters on screen that you have no idea who they are. You don't know, you have no backstory of these characters. And you, for the most part, fans have had to fill in the gaps with book form before the television format came into play. So I think this is the way to go, especially seeing how now, they're planning for the Mandalorian, the New Republic movie to take place basically as a culmination of the Mandalorian. So it's almost like they're actually going in the direction of what Star Trek was. Star Trek was on television first, and the movies were the big finales of like different seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it really comes down to the context of the story they're trying to sell. You look back at the original trilogy, and it is, this big vast galaxy. But if you look at that actual story is very self-contained. It really comes down to Luke against Vader and the Empire, and it's a small story of this band of rebels against the Empire, and there wasn't really a lot of attempt to build world back then. And I think that's why those original trilogy movies worked the best out of any of the Star Wars, because they kept it small. But now that they are trying to tell these much bigger, much more epic stories, I think you're right. Trying to squeeze a lot of this into movie form and tell it in a 2.5 hour movie, it doesn't always work. So it's nice that we are getting these series, even though, they do vary in quality a little bit. In terms of world building, it's been fantastic.
Yeah. Let's get into some of the big moments in the episode. So we start off with actually like a 5 to 7 minute just Moff Gideon scene, cut into a couple different ones. We got a big Imperial meeting that took place, and a lot was said during that meeting. One thing that really caught my attention was we have been theorizing that the armor has been behind a lot of this, and there are things that happen within the episode that still leave us to believe that she is involved in some way. But Moff Gideon mentioned that he just discovered about the Mandalorians meeting up together, and he found out about it through G68. That contacted him. Otherwise, it seemed like he had almost no communication with any Mandalorians, as if like there wasn't really a spy within their midst. Does that make sense?
It does and it doesn't. Like I think there's still something up with the armor. I just don't know how deep her involvement goes, because you do look at the fact that I know I'm jumping ahead here, but by the time the group of Mandalorians arrive to Mandalore and they get down to those the mines and everything, the Imperials have already they have a presence there. They've got like a fleet set up within there, and it's like, how did they know about this and get there and get all that done so early? Was that just G68, or is there more to it? I mean, even the episode title, The Spies. We get the reveal of one, G68, which, I mean, not a big surprise, but at least we're getting answers. But we don't necessarily get an answer as to who the other one is yet. And I feel like there's something big coming in the finale, whether that's the armor or, another surprise out of left field. It'll be interesting to see who that other spy is.
Yeah, absolutely. Before they even leave for Mandalore, an interesting, funny development happens with Grogu. Grogu has now a vehicle in his possession.
IG 12 now.
IG-12.
Formerly IG 11 is IG 12, who's just a pilotable shell for Grogu. This show, like for me, this show doesn't always hit the comedic notes well, but oh my god, this was funny. Him walking around, trying to steer this thing, running into walls, just hitting the no, yes. I was laughing. I was having a great time with that.
It definitely was unexpected. I didn't really expect him to talk. We understand Grogu and some of the things that he wants to just with his little grunts or little noises that he makes. So to actually see him hear him say a word was hilarious right off the bat. That whole sequence, I agree, it was definitely one of the funnier moments this season.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was a great little comedic bit. Even when they go out into the streets and they go by the food vendor and he starts grabbing all this stuff and shoving it into his face, It was good for an episode that progressively got, darker and more serious. It was nice to have that small moment of levity there.
Yeah, absolutely. That story arc, that story plot that finally unveiled itself, the IG-11, and it kind of worked with twofold. One, it gave us Grogu speaking and having a fun little moment, but it also came in handy, later on in the story, because Grogu can't necessarily run around or float around in that little crib of his. So it makes much more sense to give him some tactical elements as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So after that, they finally make it. Sorry, Bo-Katan and the Night Owls show up, and they descend on Navarro. The two different clans meet for the first time. It's a cool little standoff between the two, and they agree that they're going to go to Mandalore. And everything that we know about Mandalore up until now was that it's a barren wasteland. It's unbreathable. Most of the things, like you said, that gives the impression that the armor is still behind certain things. Everything that we know about Mandalore is what she tells us, and clearly, none of those things are real. There are still people there. They take their helmets off; they can breathe just fine. So yeah, what do you think about that part?
Yeah, that plays back into that theory that the armor is withholding something. I don't know again how deep her involvement goes, but it would kind of be the perfect lie to keep people away from the planet while Gideon builds his army and his fleet there.
Yeah. Again, yeah, we actually don't even know how many Mandalorians are still alive and how many managed to survive. But up until now, as far as we knew, that there weren't any survivors. So, really cool to see that some Mandalorians have survived, and it opens up the story in future seasons for them to rebuild and find more Mandalorians. The next thing to happen again adds that the armor is behind something, because it just so happened to work in her favor for her to fly up to the gauntlet up in the stratosphere of Mandalore and basically get an exit for what was to come after.
Yeah, I mean, she kind of gets a convenient escape. I mean, I think she's even the one that volunteers. She's like, "I'll take the injured survivors up to the fleet." It's like, oh, that's convenient that she's removing herself right before this ambush.
Exactly, absolutely, yeah. And I felt like they were trying to tell us something with the way they shot that scene, and they were panning back and forth from the ship of the Mandalorians going to the forge, and it kept panning back and forth to the armorer flying closer and closer to the gauntlet. So I kept getting this impression, oh my God, something bad's going to happen right now. As soon as she left, it made me feel uneasy, just the way they kept showing her. And if we know where you're going and nothing is to come out of this scene, why show her so often? As if they wanted to enforce the fact that she is no longer with them.
It's either that or they're setting up a red herring to make us think that, she is the spy. She's the one behind a lot of this. And they're going to come out with a surprise. It's going to be somebody else. For me personally, I'm on the side that I think that she does have something to do with it. But I think it'd be a pleasant surprise if they did kind of pull something out of their hat with that last episode and surprise us.
Yeah. The last major sequence is about like 20-ish minutes. We have the ambush. All of this was just amazing Star Wars. We had so many amazing moments come out of this tail end of the episode, and one of them being Paz Vizsla coming out this like hero. He's been slowly progressing as a character. They've been slowly developing his plot over the course of the season, and giving us a reason to care for him. This episode definitely made him out to be a hero.
Oh yeah, I mean, he at the end ultimately sacrifices himself in a great kind of epic standoff with the Imperial troopers, and then after that, the Praetorian Guards, which I mean, it's great. They're always so cool looking. I remember I had little action figures of. I don't know if they were they still called Praetorian Guards in the original trilogy. I had action figures of whatever they were called back then.
Yeah,
they've always been like some of my favorite enemies from the Star Wars universe.
I know the name has changed. That particular look is the First Order look.
Oh, and that looks this look is from the First Order, but the the red with the cloaks and the helmets has been around since the original.
I think they were just Senate guards before.
You might be right. Yeah.
Din got separated and captured by Moff Gideon. Moff Gideon makes his appearance in a different uniform. It's the Beskar alloy that most likely we saw within the ship that was melted to, and it was the dark alloy as well. I'm pretty sure if we recall. So it makes sense that that's his armor. He has the full Beskar armor made, and he captures Din for reasons we don't know yet. What do you think some of the reasons he could have taken Din hostage are?
So I've got a couple of theories of my own. I've also read some really interesting stuff. So originally what I thought was this is going to play into, they've shown in that one episode with Dr. Pershing, they showed the mind flare and him having his mind essentially, scrambled and erased. And that was my first thought, is like, they're going to capture him. They're going to do that to him. They're just going to wipe his mind. But I read a theory, I think it was yesterday, that what is it? Oh my God, what's drawing a blank here. What's Gideon? Jeez. I read a theory. Yeah, I read a theory yesterday that Gideon. I mean, and it makes sense if you look back at, especially the way season 2 ended. Gideon's greatest threat out there is Luke, and Din knows where Luke is, and I wonder if he's going to try and get that information out of Din.
That's a really good theory. Yeah, I totally agree with that. We're following the world of the Mandalorians, and the strongest weapon that the Mandalorians have is the Darksaber. That's the strongest weapon that they possess. But the galaxy's strongest weapon is a Force user, and the Jedi wandering out there still alive. And we know there's more than Luke. There's Ahsoka. There's potentially other Force users that are starting to be born and starting to develop their powers. And definitely Gideon wants to get to the Jedi. They know that the new empire, the new order that's forming, its biggest threat outside of the Mandalorians is going to be Jedi. So that's a good theory. Good theory that he's trying to get to Luke or Ahsoka. I don't think the mind flare is the reason, because I think Din's just too valuable and he's got too much information, like you said. He could also be looking for what's his name, Admiral Thrawn. He could be looking for Thrawn. He doesn't know where Thrawn is right now, and this could be the introduction to Thrawn that we know is going to happen in Ahsoka. If Ahsoka is looking for Thrawn and he knows where Ahsoka is, then that could be his connection that he's looking for.
Definitely agree there.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see where they go with the finale, with Din being captured. Even some of it's the actor, not Pedro, but the actor that actually plays Din, in the suit most of the show, has been hinting at some pretty dark stuff in the finale. He's saying, like, you guys asked for more, you're going to regret asking for it. This finale is going to be devastating. So I don't know. Like, I have not like necessarily a fear, but like with Pedro being busy with other projects and moving to The Last of Us and stuff like that, and this season has been slowly moving away from him as the main character. Is his character on the way out? Is there going to be some sort of sacrifice made from him? What's going to happen to him in the finale? I mean, maybe it's nothing, but there could be something there.
Yeah. He also had a moment with Bo-Katan that really showed what kind of character Din is. It was the scene just before they were going into the Forge. Bo-Katan was having this moment of self-doubt, and Din reinforced that she is their leader. And that's a moment where Din is acknowledging not only that he respects her so much, but also from the show perspective, he's acknowledging that he's not the main character anymore, that there's other characters that are now, supersede his seniority.
Yeah, absolutely. And even Filoni and Favreau have both gone on record to say recently that this is not so much a show about Din anymore. It is about the Mandalorian as a whole, like the group of them, multiple. There's not necessarily a main character anymore as they've kind of moved into this third season. Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. The episode overall was just absolutely fantastic. I enjoyed it most from the perspective that it finally gave us a lot of answers that we were looking for. It felt like they were building a lot, and I was worried halfway through the season that they were introducing so many story elements that they wouldn't be able to thread them all together. But I'm happy that they finally did, and I really enjoyed this episode for that reason.
I mean, I'm on the same page as far as the episode goes. I think for me, the season is not as satisfying just because there was a lot of filler leading up to this point, and now it feels like a lot all in one episode. They also, not to get super negative here, but they have a habit, especially with Gideon in all 3 seasons now, is they only really bring him in for the last episode or 2. And then, he has his defeat. He kind of, flies off or, gets captured or whatever it may be. And then we don't see him until the next season, the last 2 episodes. And I know, Giancarlo is a busy guy. He's in a ton of different things. But it would be nice to have his presence because he's such a great actor and he is a great, Gideon's such a great villain. It would be nice to have that villain throughout the season because I feel like when we do get him doing something like he did here, it would make it that much more meaningful and that much more of a threat. So it'd be nice, I don't know what happens with him in the finale here, but if he does stick around for next season, it would be, I would much prefer him to be a season regular.
Yeah. We've had a slow build of the Empire throughout the season, but I agree we definitely required more because for a lot of the season there felt like there were zero stakes until the introduction of Gideon. Even with the Empire scene, the New Republic scene with the Mind Flayer and G68. We didn't know at the time that G68 was a spy, obviously until she zapped Dr. Pershing. But even after that episode, there was no threat. We didn't know necessarily who she worked for. So it took a while to get where we are. I agree. They should have built it up a little bit more, even in just showcase a few other members of the First Order, throughout the season. But to get absolutely no Empire, no First Order backstory leading up to this, it just makes us feel like there's no threat brewing at all.
No, that's what I mean. Just think about, especially with these shorter seasons, think about how amazing this show could be if they had this story that kind of came to fruition in this episode, building throughout the season, even in smaller snippets in each of the previous 6 episodes, a little, tidbit of this Empire story, of this First Order story. And then it all all comes to that point, that conflict in this episode, I think it would have hit so much harder. Again, still a great episode, a great conflict. The sacrifice scene with Paz was fantastic, but I think there was potential for it to really hit next level.
Yeah. I agree with all these issues that the season has had. I have never felt that, different creative teams and different directors taking on every different episodes affected the show. But this season, it made it feel like that was the case, that different episodes steered so far away from each other that it did felt like it was a hinder this season.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot more. And again, it's always been, the framework of this show to have these one-off adventures throughout the season. There's nothing new this season, but I feel like those one-offs this season felt so much more removed than the ones we got in season 1 and 2. But hey, we're on track now. We got a great episode. Some great cameos as well. We got Charles Baker, who plays Skinny Pete in Breaking Bad, pop up as one of the survivors, which was pretty cool. I always like seeing actors from this. So we got a couple of Breaking Bad, Alan. We obviously have Giancarlo and we have Charles Baker in one episode.
What scene was Skinny Pete in? He was a survivor.
He was one of the survivors. Yeah. On the,
I actually didn't recognize him.
Well, no, he wasn't doing the
I did not recognize him.
Appearance. Yeah, he's looking a lot older. He's not so skinny anymore.
Yeah, not so skinny. That's amazing. Absolutely. Well, Ben, thank you so much for joining me, and we will catch up again next week at finale.
All right, we'll see you then.